welcome to session 4, part 2. We're continuing on with follow-through techniques when parenting kids. We left off last time at timeout, so let's move on to D, natural and logical consequences. So a natural consequence is something that naturally occurs as a result of a child misbehaving or not following a rule. For instance, if they break a toy, the natural consequence of that is that they don't have a toy to play with anymore. And so as a parent, all you have to do is stay out of the way of a natural consequence. If they step in a puddle after you've told them not to step in a puddle and their feet get wet and cold and they're not happy about that, that's a natural consequence. You just don't turn around and go back home and get them a new pair of shoes. So natural consequences are things that you just want to stay out of the way of. Then we have logical consequences, and those are consequences that parents impose on the kids. And I have three kind of rules of thumb for a logical consequence. The first thing is it needs to be simple. The second thing is it needs to be soon or immediately following the misbehavior. And then third, it needs to be salient. It has to have some teeth in it. The word logical is used because, in a sense, whatever the consequence is, it kind of fits the misbehavior. So the punishment fits the crime, in a sense. So if they stay up late past their bedtime, a good logical consequence would be to wake them up early the next morning. So it's about sleep, and they're staying up late, so then they have to wake up early. And then the advantage of that too is that because they woke up early, they'll be more likely to go to sleep at their bedtime the following night. It's immediate because it applies within 24 hours. It's simple to wake them up. It's harder to get them to go to sleep than it is to wake them up. And it's salient because most kids don't like to wake up early in the morning. So let's say, for instance, the adolescent rides their pre-adolescent rides their bike to an area where they're not supposed to go. And you've been very clear with them about what the boundaries are as far as how far they can ride. And they ride beyond that boundary. Well, a good logical consequence would be to take away the privilege of riding their bicycle. And a good follow-through technique would be to lock it up, and with either a combination lock that only you know the combination to, or a lock that has a key that only you possess the key. That way it's simple. Just lock the bike up. It's soon. As soon as you find out that they rode their bike outside the boundary, you can take that away. And it's salient because obviously they're riding their bike, so that's something they like to do with their time. So taking away the privilege of riding the bike is salient for them. It's also something that you can follow through on consistently. Once you lock that bike up, there's no way they can take out that bike when maybe you're not looking or something like that. Maybe an older adolescent example would be that they come home past curfew, and let's say their curfew is 11 o'clock at night and they don't get home until 11:30. A logical consequence would be for the next weekend, they're not allowed to go out. And then the following weekend they can go out, and as long as they abide by the curfew, they can continue to go out on weekends. So they like to go out, so it's salient, it's soon, it's the very next weekend, and it's simple. You just don't allow them to go out. You keep them in the house, and if keep the car keys if they're using the car to go out or something like that. So that would be an example of a logical consequence. The other thing that can be helpful with logical consequences is to give the consequences in increments. So for instance, let's say that children are in the swimming pool. You're at the swimming pool, and brother and sister are arguing and fighting and splashing water on each other and generally not being nice to each other. You could say to them, look, you guys, stop splashing each other. The rule is never splash each other in the pool. Now both of you get out of the pool. So, but instead of saying, well, you were splashing each other, we're done swimming, we need to go home, you can put the consequence in an increment. You can say, each of you sit on different ends of the pool for 5 minutes, And then after 5 minutes, you can let them go back in the pool. And as long as they're not splashing each other, they can stay in the pool. If they start to splash each other again, then immediately you would have them exit the pool again and sit for 5 minutes on both ends of the pool. So it's simple to enforce, it's immediate, and it's salient because they'd rather be in the pool than out of the pool. So coming up with good logical consequences that are simple, soon, and salient can be a creative process. But the more you practice at it, the better you'll get. The next follow-through technique is very similar. It's just loss of a privilege. So basically, the child has a right to food and shelter and basic care, but other things that they do that are enjoyable can be considered privileges that can be taken away if that privilege is abused. So a very common one for an adolescent would be their phone. So let's say, for instance, you buy a phone for your adolescent, and the rule is when I call you or text you, you need to call or text me back within 15 minutes. And let's say you call or text your adolescent and they don't get back to you, it's been over an hour. Well, they've broken that rule, so they need to lose that privilege of having a phone with them to use. So you can take that privilege away for a day or longer, probably I would say up to a week at the harsher end, and probably a day at the more lenient end, and say, look, having the phone is a privilege, and if you're not going to use the phone responsibly by calling me back when you need to, then you're going to lose the privilege of having the phone. Now you can incrementalize this as well, because you may want your child to have their phone if they're at a friend's house or if they're at school, to call you to pick them up or something like that. So you can say you've lost the privilege of having your phone for social purposes. So in that case, they could have their phone during the school day, and then when they come home and they would want to use their phone for social reasons, then you would have them give you their phone as soon as they arrive home for the number of days that they have lost it for. So you can say, if you use your phone responsibly for the next 3 days, and you don't make social calls at school or when I want you to have your phone for safety reasons, and you do give it to me responsibly every day when you get home, and you do that for 3 days in a row, then you can have your phone back. You can earn back that privilege through good behavior. And I like that a lot better than just kind of doing your time. So when you think of a consequence, if you can think of a certain number of days in a row of responsible behavior equals having the privilege back, that tends to work pretty well for the adolescent. Being able to go to their friends' houses to spend the night would be an example of a privilege. So if they are talking to a friend when they should be doing their homework, then they can lose that privilege. So a very common problem would be that the adolescent would have a rule which says as soon as you come home from school, you have to finish your homework before you can have social interaction with your friends. And the adolescent may not be done with their homework, and they may be Instagramming their friends or texting their friends or something like that. And you can then you could take away the privilege of the phone, or you could just take away the privilege of the social activity that they're looking forward to having that weekend. Because you're taking the very thing that they want to do, which is socialize, and you're taking that away, and because they're not doing their work first. And so hopefully that will get them to start doing their homework first before they then begin to socialize, and kind of being compliant with that. So that's an example of loss of privilege. The next one is called the when-then principle. Sometimes it's called Grandma's Rule. And the idea is that when the child does X, which is something that you need them to do or want them to do, then they can do Y, which is something that they want to do. So let's say, for instance, a common example would be that their room needs to be cleaned. But they also want you to give them a ride to go, they want a ride to their friend's house to go hang out with their friend. You could say, sure, I'll give you a ride, as soon as your room is cleaned to my standards, then I will take you, give you a ride to your friend's house. So that not only motivates them to clean their room, but it also motivates them to clean their room well, because you're not going to give them a ride until it's cleaned well, and to clean it fast, because the faster they get it cleaned, the faster they can go to their friend's house. So that's two of the problems that parents complain about when they just say to their child, you need to clean your room. The adolescent will dawdle, they'll be very slow, and they won't do a very good job. But if you say you have to do the job according to my standards, then I will give you what you want, which is a ride. Now you're going to get a well-cleaned room, and you're going to get it done quickly. Same thing with homework and free time. When you finish your homework, then you can have free time. When you finish your dinner, then you can have dessert. After you wash the car, then you can use the car. Then you can borrow the car. So after you do your chores, then you can watch TV. After you take a shower, then you can go on your iPad. So this when-then principle works very well, and it works for kids of all ages. And the good thing about it is it's usually pretty easy to follow through on a consistent basis. Pretty simple to implement. Okay, the next follow-through technique is ignoring, and this is based on the idea of extinction, that behavior that's not reinforced will eventually go away. So a typical time where I would recommend ignoring is, let's say, a car ride where there's 4 kids in the car and one kid is whining and complaining. You can just tell the other 3 kids, do not look at them, don't give them any attention, do not talk to them, don't say anything to them. And by doing that, the child who's whining and complaining isn't getting reinforced for it. Eventually it'll just extinguish, it'll just kind of die out on its own. So that's just the idea of taking away any reinforcement will cause a behavior to decrease over time. So that's ignoring. And then the last one on the list here is called overcorrection. And this means requiring the child to do the correct behavior several times over. So a common instance when I might recommend overcorrection would be, let's say a child runs into the street before looking both ways. So what you could do with overcorrection is, the rule is, clearly state the rule, that you need to look both ways before you cross the street. And then the overcorrection is, I want you to do that 25 times in a row. Look left, look right, walk across the street. Don't run. Look left, look right, walk back across the street, and then go back and forth 25 times. So it's a consequence because they don't want to have to do that, but also it helps them to practice the correct behavior. If they leave their door open when you would like the door to be shut, you could have them open and shut the door 25 times. Or let's say they leave the door unlocked when they're supposed to lock the door before they leave. You could have them leave, lock the door, unlock the door, come back in, leave, lock the door, and so forth, and repeat that 25 times over. That's called overcorrection, and that can be a very effective follow-through technique. Okay, continuing on with parents as authority, there's some more points that I want to make here. The first one is, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And Jesus says this in Matthew 5:37. The idea is that if you say yes to your child, yes, I will take you swimming, then you take them swimming. Yes, I will give you a ride to your friend's house, then you give them a ride to their friend's house. You're maintaining integrity by following through on what you say you're going to do. And you're being a positive role model for your child so that they will learn by the modeling to follow through on what they say they're going to do. So if they say they're going to complete their homework, then they'll complete their homework. If they say that they're going to call you if their plans change, then they'll call you because their plans have changed. But if you role model not letting your yes be yes, it's your child is going to imitate that, and it's going to be harder to get them to do what you want them to do. And then very importantly is let your no be no. Once you say no, do not change your no into a yes. There's something that we call negative reinforcement. I call it negative noise. And the child that utilizing this technique, they don't consciously know that they're doing it. But basically what they will do is they'll make negative noise after you say no until you relent and say yes and they get their way. So let's say, for instance, you're at the toy store to buy a birthday gift for one of their friends and they say that they want you to buy them a particular toy and you say no. And then they keep asking over and over and over and they start whining and they start crying. Finally, if you relent and say, okay, if you promise to be quiet, I'll buy you the toy. Now what you've done is you've actually reinforced that child to whine and complain and to cry to get their way. And that's not a good idea, because then you're going to have a child that's going to be more likely to do those things. So if you say no, you have to let that no remain a no. Now that may mean that sometimes when the child asks, can I do something, you might have to say, let me get back to you on that. I will discuss that with your father. I'll discuss that with your mother, and then I'll get back in touch with you. Because you don't want to quickly say no and then wish that you had said yes and then change your no to a yes. So if you say no, be certain about it and then stick with the no. And that way you'll get less arguing from your kids when you do say no. The next tip is to be gentle with your speech. The Bible talks about being gentle with your speech. This means not yelling at your children, and you're going to get at times very upset and very angry, and that's when you need to take a deep breath, calm yourself down, and clearly state the rule, clearly impose the consequence, follow through on it, but remaining calm the whole time. This is very hard for parents to do, but you know, the Bible says that harsh words stir up anger, and when kids are spoken to harshly, they're going to feel anger. And then it may not seem like they're angry because they may get quiet, but they're more likely to misbehave. They may act out that anger by misbehaving. So it's very important to be very matter of fact and very calm when you impose a consequence and when you discipline your children. Watch your tone of voice, watch the volume of their voice. Along those same lines, avoid shaming and belittling children. The Bible says, fathers, do not exasperate your children lest they become discouraged. And so you want to avoid making a sarcastic comment, mocking your children, making fun of them, belittling them, name-calling. A very common way of shaming that parents aren't really quite aware of is just asking the why question. Why did you hit your sister? Why did you not do your homework? Why didn't you eat all of your dinner? Children are not going to answer that question to your satisfaction in the first place, and in the second place, they're going to feel shamed by you. So you want to avoid all of those why questions. So instead of saying, you know, why did you hit your sister, which makes your children feel ashamed and it disrupts your relational connection with them, you would just simply say, hey, remember the rule, never hit your sister, now go to timeout, and then you enforce and follow through on the timeout. But you can do that in a very calm way. All right. The fourth tip is to avoid arguing with your children. I recommend using what are called the argument deflectors, and those are nevertheless, regardless, and whether or not. And then after you've used 2 or 3 argument deflectors, then you use what's called the sponge, and that's anything else. These are taken from a guy named Gregory Bodenhammer, who has a program called Back in Control. And Bodenhammer was a probation officer that worked a lot with children, and wrote a book called Back in Control, where he talks about these argument deflectors, and he talks about this sponge. And I have found his approach to be very, very helpful for avoiding arguments. So let's say, for instance, you know, children tend to argue when they don't get their way. So I want to go play at Riley's house. It's too late. You've got to eat dinner, and then we've got to get ready for bed. But I'll only be there for 15 minutes. Regardless, you're not going to go play. But it's going to take at least 15 minutes for you to finish cooking dinner. And I don't even have any homework. Okay, whether or not you have homework or not, you're not allowed to go to Riley's house. You never let me do anything that I want to do. And then you use the sponge. Okay, is there anything else that you would like to say? Well, you're not being fair. Anything else? And you don't engage in the argument. You don't get defensive. You don't make a justification. If you can also use this with adolescents. I want to go to the party. Well, what party is it? Well, it's just my friend's parents are out of town, and they're just going to invite a few people over just to kind of hang out. So you're telling me that at this party there's no adult supervision? Well, I think she has an older brother. How old is her older brother? Well, he's 19. Okay, I'm not comfortable with that. You're not allowed to go to the party this weekend. But everyone's going to be there that I know. Okay, regardless of whether people are going to be there or not, you're not allowed to go this weekend to the party. Dad, I'm already 16 years old. I can handle myself. Nevertheless, you're not going to the party. You are so strict, it's not even funny how strict you are. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Can I go? No, you can't go. Why not? Is there anything else you want to say? I'm so sick of you. Is there anything else? And then that just soaks up the argument. So you use nevertheless, regardless whether or not, and then lastly, anything else. The fifth is to work together as parents and present a united front to your children when and if they attempt to divide and conquer. So children may ask one parent, can I go to the party? That parent says no. They may then go to the other parent and say, is it okay if I go to that party? That's attempting to divide and conquer. So you need to have constant communication with your spouse about what your child is doing and what rules you're enforcing and what consequences you're enforcing. So if mom has a consequence, which is you're not allowed to use your phone socially, and mom happens to be gone in the afternoon and dad comes home and the child comes home and doesn't give the phone to dad, dad may not even know that that child is not allowed to use the phone. The child may take advantage of that by using their phone socially. But if dad's communicating with mom and he knows what the consequence is, or mom texts dad and says, don't forget to take her phone when she comes home, then you're working together as a united front. This also means that mom and dad need to jointly decide together what the rules are going to be and what the consequences are going to be. And that's not always an easy process. Sometimes that takes some negotiation and it takes some compromise. And each parent may have different ideas about what is appropriate as a rule and what's an appropriate consequence. But it's better to do that negotiating work and that compromise work so that both parents can get on the same page, and that will give more structure and stability to the child that you're parenting. Okay, so that's it on parent as authority. Next time we'll pick up with session 5 on strong families.